Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. Today's topic is supporting new Mainers and what FAME can do to help. And in some cases, it's just providing you with other resources that we think will be helpful. But we're very excited to share this topic today. I'm Mila Tappan. I'm the Manager of College Access and Outreach at the Finance Authority of Maine, and I'm going to be co-presenting today with Florica Malau. Florica, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I can't see you, but welcome. Hello. I'm Florica Melwell, College Planning Advisor at FAME, and you'll get to know more about me as we go throughout the presentation. So welcome.
So we're really excited that you're all here today. We do want to let you know that this presentation is being recorded. What we will do is hopefully by Friday, we'll send out the recording as well as the PowerPoint. We'll send it to everyone who registered. So even if you have to leave early or if you know a colleague who wasn't able to attend, we will automatically send it out to all registrants. We would love to have you ask your questions. Go ahead, drop them in the chat or Q&A. We're going to take turns. So I'm going to present for a bit, and then Florica is going to watch the questions, and then we're going to swap as we go through the presentation. So please share your questions with us. If we can't answer them, what we'll do is we'll follow up in an email afterwards. So when we send the email with the recording and the PowerPoint, we'll also address any questions that we aren't able to get answered today. Hopefully we'll get them all, but if we don't, that's how we will cover them. So let's get started with today's presentation. Here's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about free community college, which that might be unexpected, but I'll connect those dots in just a minute. And then we're going to focus on our website and specifically on the new Mainers section of our website, which we have recently expanded. And we have many resources there. And so we thought it'd be really helpful for you to be able to see what's on our website if you haven't had a chance to explore it, or if you have checked it out in the past to see some of the new content that we've added. So we're going to go through the various sections, getting ready, paying for college. We're going to talk a little bit about credential evaluation and some programs that exist to help with that. And additionally, we'll share some resources and some FAQs. Florica will wrap it up for us by sharing a little bit of information about what she's able to do to help support you and your students, as well as what we as the full CAFE team can do to support you and your students. So again, we're really excited that you're here to be with us today as we talk about these topics. So let's talk about free community college. You might say, well, this is not a FAME resource. You're correct. This is not a FAME resource. But we have partnered very closely with the Maine Community College System on this initiative. And we thought this was a good place to start today when we're talking about new Mainers. And one of the reasons that we thought it was important is because it is so widely available to all students, including new Mainers. So what is the Free Community College Initiative? It's a program that provides 2 years worth of tuition-free community college at any of the 7 community colleges here in Maine, and it's available to the students who graduated in 20, 21, 22, and 23. Now, here's some good news. It's in the governor's budget for 24 and 25, so the classes of 24 and 25. Now, that budget has not been, dealt with in the legislature yet. We won't know until June whether it remains included or not, but we're very hopeful that it will continue beyond the class of 23. But currently, those are the classes that it serves. And that's the case, even if you had someone who graduated in 20 and hasn't gone to school, they are still eligible for this tuition-free program. What the initiative is actually called is the Free College Scholarship. So basically, if a student is from one of those classes and meets the other criteria that we're going to talk about in a moment, they are awarded the Free College Scholarship, which again covers 100% of their tuition and mandatory fees at any of the 7 community colleges throughout Maine. So what do students have to do to qualify for this? Students have to have a high school diploma or the equivalent, but this does include homeschool students, students who have earned a GED or a high set during those years. So one of the things we've been wanting to communicate and trying to communicate is that if we have people out there who are working on their GED or high set and haven't quite finished it, if they wrap it up and get it completed, so they're part of technically the class of 23, they too are eligible for this program. So we want to make sure that everyone that, can potentially take advantage of this, who is interested, knows about how flexible this program is. If a student qualifies, they do need to be enrolled full-time, earning 30 credits per year. And sometimes people have kind of pushed back a little bit, saying that, geez, maybe, that's a lot. 30 credits is a lot. But what the research has shown is that students who attend full-time actually are much more successful in completing college and actually do better academically, which I found fascinating. So the idea is to get people into school and get them through and get that degree earned in that 2-year time frame. Students do have to be pursuing an associate's degree or an academic credential. They need to live in Maine at the time of enrollment and while enrolled in the program. So believe it or not, people from out of state, if they were in the classes of 20 through 23, could move here, live in Maine, and take advantage of this program as well. And they do have to accept all federal and state grants. So to be honest, this is how FAME is so closely engaged with the Maine community college system, because of course, talking about the FAFSA and helping people get that completed is so much of the work that we do. So the requirement is that students file the FAFSA, because we want to be sure that students take advantage of all of the other money that is out there. So we are going to have a lot of our community college students who, when they file the FAFSA, they're actually eligible for a Pell Grant and a Maine State Grant. And to be honest with you, that will cover their tuition and mandatory fees. So they actually won't receive the free college scholarship. But let's just say they're eligible only for a very small amount of Pell Grant. Then they could potentially get the Pell Grant, and then they get the rest of their tuition covered and fees covered by the free college scholarship. Where this has really been a beneficial program as well are students who come from families that are more middle class, right? So that they're not eligible for a Pell Grant or a Maine State Grant. They then get 100% of their tuition covered specifically through this free college scholarship. So the end result is that 100% of tuition and mandatory fees is covered. Exactly how that is covered depends on what the student is eligible for when they file a FAFSA. And as many of you are already probably very familiar with, the advantage also of having students file the FAFSA is, let's just say they are eligible for a full Pell Grant and they are eligible for a full Maine State Grant, then what that's going to mean is not only are their tuition and fees going to be fully covered, but they're going to get a significant credit back that they can use for their books and their supplies, even help with their travel and their living expenses. So that's why the idea is that we want to be sure that students file the FAFSA, that they have to do that, see what they're eligible for, and then the community colleges will pick up any remaining tuition and mandatory fees. But we do have a segment of our population that are not eligible for federal student aid. Specifically, we're thinking about our new Mainers. So we have new Mainers who don't meet the criteria to be considered US citizens or eligible non-citizens. So we don't want those students to have to go through the hassle, and the community college system, when they set up this program, didn't want to set up a barrier of having those students have to file a FAFSA when the end result was going to be that they were not eligible for any federal aid. So these students don't need to file a FAFSA and are eligible for the free college scholarship. So if you knew a new Mainer, or you know of a new Mainer that meets the other criteria that we just talked about, primarily graduated from 20 to 23 from high school, or got their GED or high set, then if you know that they're not a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen, then what we want them to do is to contact an advisor at the community college that they're planning to attend. And that college advisor will help them through this process. And so basically each college is a little bit different, but they'll document the student's situation, and they can indeed receive that free college scholarship, meaning that 100% of their tuition and mandatory fees will be covered. So we're really excited about this. I've been so thrilled at how flexible the program is. And the idea is, not to have barriers there. We want students to be able to get in, get that training, get that education, and be able to get into the workforce and become, financially stable and everything that goes along with that. As a quick aside, if you have a student who is unable to get the FAFSA completed for other reasons, let's just say we have some students have some very complicated situations with their parents, and maybe parents are refusing to file the FAFSA, that's a situation where we would want the student to talk with their a college advisor on the campus they were looking to go to as well, so that they could work through that situation. We don't want students to say, I can't get this, this isn't for me. As long as they meet the basic criteria, we want them to contact the school so that they can work through this and receive this free tuition and mandatory fee coverage. All right, Flo, do we have any questions about that you want me to address before we move on?
Yes, we had one question, but I did answer. Somebody said, can students file a FAFSA with no social security number?
No.
Okay.
So students cannot file a FAFSA unless they have a social security number. So students do need to be U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens. And we're going to show you a great tool in a moment to figure out if they are or they are not. But students do have to meet that criteria of having a social security number. Their parents do not. And so this is something that comes up regularly with students in this community, is that the students themselves may be eligible for federal aid, but the parents are not, because they're not U.S. citizens and they're not eligible non-citizens. That is okay. So if a parent doesn't have a social security number, that's fine. The student can file a FAFSA, indicate their information, and then include their social security number. But when they get to the parents section, if parents don't have a social security number, they can enter all zeros, and that's fine. There's no requirement that the parent be eligible for federal student aid themselves. Okay.
One more question.
Sure.
Do new Mainers have to take the TOEFL or the ACAT tests to enroll in classes?
That I'm going to have to refer back to the community college people. I don't know the requirements at each individual campus as to what they need students to do, but that'd be a great question for the admissions office at an individual school of the students, whichever individual school, the students are looking at. I think we do have some community college people on here today. So if any of you do know the answer for your school specifically and want to add that to the chat where everyone else can see, please do. But otherwise, I would recommend that you contact the admissions office at that individual school that a student is looking at. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and move on, but if other questions arise, we can circle back to these at the end. So what I would like to do next, and Florika and I are going to break this up, is we want you to see our new and improved website, specifically the new Mainers section of our website. Now, I realize that when I show you what I'm showing you here on the screen, you can't read this. I know this. What I'm going to do and what Florika is going to do is we're just going to highlight the information on the website. But what we really hope that you'll do is go to the website and check it out and read in more detail whichever sections that you're interested in. I did think about doing a live demo of the website, but Zoom gets kind of clunky when we start changing screens and stuff like that. So we decided we'd just go ahead and take screenshots so you could get familiar with kind of how the screens are laid out, the various screens that we have. But again, I know that you can't see this. It's not large enough to actually read the content. So we'll highlight what's on each of the pages that we're going to talk about. So this is the homepage of the new Mainers section. We start right off by highlighting Florika. We want to be sure that people know that there is a person that can work with them and help them navigate this process. I think we all know that sometimes just having someone that you can reach out to, that you can call, that you can email, is just what is needed to help people take that next step. So we're so fortunate to have Florika being able to really focus on this population and to provide support and information. Some additional pages that we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about getting ready for college. We're going to talk about how students, new Mainers specifically, can actually pay for college. And that's going to be whether they're eligible for federal aid or not eligible for federal aid. We're going to talk about the credential evaluation section, and we're going to talk about some programs that exist to help people fund a credential. And then we're going to talk about some resources that exist in terms of other organizations and kind of what they do and who you might be able to turn to for some additional support for your students. We're going to share an FAQ, and like I said, Florika is going to wrap up by letting you know what we at FAME can do to support you and your students. On this page too, I think it's important to note that we do have down a little bit lower that you can't see here. We do have some student testimonials, and those I think are also important. We always want to be sure that people know that they can do this, that there are lots of situations that seem so difficult, and attaining a degree, a credential of value, can seem overwhelming. But to see people like you who have been able to do that, I think can really make a big difference. And Florica is an example of that. She's an example of someone who has come to the US. She lived in Africa for 9 years. She graduated from Portland High School. She graduated from Hudson University, and she's here with us. And she's just a great example of, it's not easy, but boy, she just pushed through, and what she adds to our team, let alone to the community at large, is just amazing. So we want that represented on our website. So we start off with the Get Ready for College section. When we started working on a revamp of our website, which we actually rolled out this website about a little over a year ago, but we revamped this section again just recently, we debated about, did we put in this information about the different types of institutions? But I don't know about you, it's not just people who are new to Maine or new to the US. We come in contact with a lot of students who don't really know what's the difference between a community college and a university, or a university and a college, or a public school versus a private school. So we thought it was helpful just to put a little bit of information about how those types of schools are different, so that students can, understand that, well, geez, maybe this one is what's going to be better suited to me versus this other option. So very high level, but if you're ever just looking for some information for any of your students, we do outline that there. We also talk a little bit about admission criteria. Often, as we were just talking about, the ability to demonstrate your ability to speak English can be a piece of the puzzle that needs to be looked at when students are applying for an admission. So it's something that is definitely students want to be checking out. Additionally, we want students to know that there are some fabulous federally funded programs here to support college going in Maine. There's the Talent Search program, which is for students in middle and high school, the Upward Bound program that focuses primarily on sophomores to seniors, and then student support services that exist on the college campuses. Now, I was remiss, and I did not list the Maine Educational Opportunity Center, and I know we have some of the people who work for the Maine Educational Opportunity Center, which is also a federally funded program, on this webinar. So I'm sorry about that. But these are all just amazing resources. And there are people with all of these programs that can really help students navigate this entire process, from getting ready to go to college, getting everything in order, to making their way through college and ultimately graduating from college. So we're really, really excited that we have these programs in Maine, and they are just absolute difference makers. Not all colleges have student support services, but many of our public schools do, and many of our high schools have Upward Bound and Talent Search as well. So check with your local schools to see if those programs exist. So then we focus on paying for college. And obviously this is what's in our wheelhouse. On this website, we do have some information that really is not what we tend to deal with day to day. To be honest with you, credential evaluation is one of those things. But we feel like it's important to have that information available. So we do have it on our website, but paying for college is in our wheelhouse and where we spend the vast majority of our time. So the reality is many people, even the students themselves, may not realize whether or not they're eligible for federal student aid. And when we're working with a student, we need to know that. That is like one of the very first questions we want to ascertain the answer to. Are you eligible for federal student aid? Because if you are, your pathway is this. You can get federal student aid that includes, potentially Pell Grants, Maine state grants. If you aren't, it doesn't mean you can't go to school. It just means that there's a different pathway that we're going to share with you and recommend resources that you look into. So knowing right up front whether or not a student is eligible for federal financial aid or federal student aid is really, really critical. I don't know about you, but off the top of my head, I couldn't go through all the criteria. I'm pretty familiar with it, but I really appreciate that there's a tool here on our website that Florica is going to demonstrate in a moment or show you the questions where students can go through it, or anyone can go through it, so that they can see the criteria of what does make a student an eligible non-citizen. So most people know they're US citizens, but where the tricky part comes in is, are they an eligible non-citizen or an ineligible non-citizen when it comes to federal student aid? So having this tool on our website is absolutely important. So what we do is, if students do know, though, if students right up front when they come to this page say, yes, I'm eligible for federal financial aid, great. We send them directly. They can click on that link, and there's a page that Flo is going to show you in a second. If they know they're not eligible for federal student aid, then there's a link which they can go to, which Flo will show you in a moment, where that takes you, and students can navigate that part of the process. But what's really helpful is when they don't know, they're not sure whether they're eligible. And so I'm going to turn it over to Flo, and she's going to talk about some of the other content, including what I just mentioned, that's on this page.
So we do have tools available, and that's really helpful. This is one of the most important tools. We'll walk through it. We have tracking the status of your immigration application. This tool is, if you're working with students who are unaware of their immigration status. So this is where they'll go on the website. Like Mila said, it's so small, you can't really see it. It's right in there. So if you click on there, when you go to a website and working with students, this is where individuals can go and track that status of their cases. We also have a great video for paying for higher educational video, and this will explain more in depth for students to be able to pay for college. We also have other videos on our website in Arabic targeted towards those students. And also, as you can see on here, we also have scholarships for new Mainers. And we also have a link there that students can actually explore. And so, as we spoke earlier, for students who are eligible for the FAFSA, they don't need to do anything. They'll review the information and they'll just go ahead and file the FAFSA like every other student. For individuals who are new Mainers, there might be certain aspects and issues that they might face. So for example, as somebody mentioned over there, students must be US citizens or eligible non-citizen with a social security number to file the FAFSA. However, parents do not need to meet those criteria. Parents don't need to have a social security number when filing for the FAFSA. In many cases, when a student is filing a FAFSA, they can have a parent who is not living in the United States, and on that social security line, they could just go ahead and put 0. We do provide, a lot of information on website and how to handle those certain situations. As you may know, the FAFSA is, hasn't been easier, and it's been a challenge, and we're working towards that. But for students, we do realize that it's getting easier. We have also a video on our website, as we mentioned, for individuals and families to watch a video that's narrated in Arabic. So if you have individuals who are in your classroom and families whose English is not their first language, we have those videos available. We also have the College Pathway Worksheet. This is a worksheet where students who are not eligible could use to explore different revenues, like applying for scholarships and just kind of having that as a plan to move forward.
And as I move to the next slide, I just want to say that those videos that are in Arabic, it is your own Florica that is narrating those. So
I forgot to mention it.
Yeah, no, I just love it. I love listening to them.
Okay. And what we also have built in for students who are not eligible, we have built in the skip logic. This will walk you through these questions. It'll come up as each questions at a time. So this is where a lot of times working with students, they're like, oh, am I eligible for the FAFSA? I'm not sure, they're unaware. Like Mila said, students who know they're eligible for the FAFSA, we know they are. But however, these questions you answer one at a time. And once you answer that, for students who are eligible, it will direct you to the student financial aid, to the to the federal student aid link. And then also different content will be on that screen. And if a student answered no, there will be additional questions. If a student answers no to all 7 questions, then they'll be referred to, if you could see here on the other slide, they'll refer to the resource and the next page, and they can click on that link for more resources.
Exactly. So down at the bottom, that will take them there directly. One thing I wanted to mention, and Florica, I forgot this, so we didn't talk about this ahead of time. But if you look at question 3, and again, these come up one at a time. So if a student answers yes to one of these questions, it just directs them to the I am eligible. But here, it has information under number 3. It has examples of permanent resident cards, alien registration cards, and things like that. So if you click there, you can see them, because I know that's one of the things that I find sometimes when I'm working with students, I'm not as familiar with those cards as I would like to be. So being able to look at one and see how they're laid out and what information is on them can be really helpful too. So
in many cases too, students are unaware of the documents that they need. So it's great to have that right in handy. And then for students not eligible for federal student aid, we have different choices. So students could utilize the free college, that might be an option. There's also schools that have policies and funding to support those students who are not eligible for the FAFSA. We also have a link and questions that could be, students could ask their school. So student could ask, a lot of times students don't file the FAFSA and they don't want to mention to the college that, oh, I don't qualify for the FAFSA. So we have questions to ask those schools and how to see about getting funding. We also want to share programs and resources like the USM Promise Scholarship. It's open to asylum seekers under certain criteria and circumstance. We also have the adult learner scholarships that's available for students, and that is another option, as well as many other scholarships. We also want to mention that if a student is working, their parents are working, there's also educational benefits that might be available. It's so important to just ask and speak to your employer. And kind of what I've noticed working with these population is many times, given circumstance, depending on their status, they don't want to put that information out there. So it's so important to be gentle and kind of guide them to where they could get that resources.
And one thing too that I think is so interesting is we have some information here on, admissions policies and financial aid. There are schools out there, and they tend to be private schools, but there are some private schools out there where if students, do identify themselves as students who are not eligible for federal financial aid, there are schools that with their own money, have said, this is important to us that we have students from all different backgrounds attending our institution. And so they will sometimes designate enough money so that students can, even without getting federal financial aid, have enough assistance to be able to pursue higher education. So we, like Florica said, we have some questions that students who are looking at some of those schools could ask to see if, or find a list of those schools. There's a link there that can take you to some of those schools so that students can see some of those additional options that they do have available to them. And I think with any students, don't you, Flo, that with any students, this whole pay as you go and kind of piecemealing things together, this is not unique to just new Mainers or those who aren't eligible for federal aid. Even for students who do get some federal aid, they often need to pull in these other pieces too: scholarships, tuition payment plans, employer resources, and things like that.
The other, what we have is also local scholarship at their high school. A lot of immigrants, in most cases, they do qualify for the FAFSA and they could get scholarship. The PDF scholarship, as you see here, we also have that available. This is a great link that you can actually access right on our website. So you can go ahead and use that PDF and explore different scholarship for asylum seekers. This is a great resource. We also want to emphasize to students that there is money available out there for college, and that could be at their local high school, guidance office, or even financial aid office. If a student is working, if you're working with a student and they can check in with their employer, as we talked earlier, they do have tuition reimbursements. And also if they're, depending on their faith-based, there's faith-based institutes where they might have scholarships available for students. These faith-based organizations are not advertised, so it's so important to check with those institutions to see if they have local scholarship. And also, as we will explore this later on too, but also local organizations. We have a lot of local organizations here that are targeted towards new Mainers, and exploring those organizations, in many cases, they might have scholarships available. So like I said, it's very important to just ask and see that they might have scholarship and there might be money available, but it's not a lot that they're advertising for students.
And I just wanted to mention the piece about the College Financial Aid Office. For years, I worked at Orono, and we had some scholarships that individuals would say, hey, I want to create a scholarship. And the individual giving the money could determine what the scholarship criteria was. So there would be scholarships that the financial aid office couldn't easily award because students had to self-identify. For example, I graduated from Orono, and there's a class of 1988 scholarship that if my kids went to Orono, I would want them to be sure they applied for, but the financial aid office is never going to know who those students are. So when we talk about talking with the College Financial Aid Office, that's one of the things that we're thinking about. Do they have some scholarships that have criteria that they don't know who to award them to unless the student self-identifies? So it's going beyond even just talking, saying, hey, what's available, but specifically asking if there are some of those restricted or selective scholarships that might exist.
And as you may add, Myla, in many cases, the financial aid office are unaware that the student is not eligible for the FAFSA. So talking to the financial aid office could explore to different revenues and scholarships available.
Exactly right, because a lot of schools, rely heavily on federal financial aid. I mean, that's a lot of how their students pay for their schooling. But some schools, have their own institutional money, and they get to make those decisions about who they give that funding to. So always worth. The worst thing that's going to happen if you ask a school about this is that they're going to say, sorry, we don't have it available. So now let's move on and talk about credential evaluation. So this is the new page. This is the page that hasn't been on the website until just recently, or at least in this level of detail. Again, not really in our wheelhouse. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I am not by any stretch of the imagination an expert when it comes to credential evaluation. But at the same time, we know how critical that is because we have so many people who have come into this country. They have educational credentials from their home country. They have work experience from their home country. And we want them to be able to use that experience and knowledge here in the US. So they need to go through, in some cases, they need to go through some sort of an evaluation process. So just in general terms, there are three basic types or three common types of evaluations. There are course by course evaluations. These are typically used for college admissions. So let's say someone attended an institution of higher ed in another country and they want to transfer or they want to go to school here in the US. They don't want to have to start from scratch. We don't want them to have to start from scratch. But instead, if they can have this evaluation, course by course evaluation, maybe the school that they're attending here in the US will say, well, hey, you've already taken XYZ courses and we can count those. And so that's going to be really beneficial to help them, finish their degree more quickly and not pay for courses that they've already completed. So that's one type of evaluation. Another is an educational credential evaluation. This is often used for employment purposes or immigration matters. This is when someone actually has that credential in another country. Then the credential itself is evaluated and it's determined whether or not there's an equivalent degree here in the US. So basically, if someone has a degree in X, Y, and Z, is that equivalent to what they would have learned in this country if they had that same degree or something that's an equivalent degree. And then there is professional work experience evaluation. This is primarily used for immigration purposes. So there are times when people, are going to be coming to this country, and in order to come to the country, they have to have certain backgrounds. It's usually when they're applying for, I think it's an H-1B visa. So we're not going to focus quite as much on that today, but those are some different types of credential evaluations. Now, one of the things that we need people to do is to figure out, do they need a credential evaluation or not? So what they want to do is they want to talk to whichever organization figures in their future plans. So if they are looking to go to higher education, they're looking to go to school, they're looking to go to USM or Orono or any one of the thousands of schools that exist here in the US, they want to talk to that school specifically. They want to share what their background is and get a sense of, what are the requirements for me to apply to this school and to be accepted to that school. And that's where credentialing evaluation may come in if they've taken courses in another country. If they're looking to get a job and that job requires a certain type of background, they want to talk with the employers about what their background already is in the other country and what sort of documentation they need to show that employer so that they can hire them. And then sometimes it's all about professional licensing. And so they, want to be sure that they have the recognition that they need to in order to practice in certain professions. So all of those are circumstances in which a credential evaluation may come into play. Now, if someone is going to pursue a credential evaluation, we want to be sure that they are using an organization or a company that's reputable. Like anything, and we were talking about this morning in a different meeting, there are so many scams out there. There are so many people out there who are just trying to make money off of grandmothers in some cases by pretending that they're an injured grandson who needs money. I mean, the scams just really run the gamut. And there are scams related to this as well. So we want to be sure that people are working with a company that is legitimate. So there is an organization by the name of the National Association of Credential Evaluation Services. And the link is on the website. It's going to be right down here in the bottom of this page. And you can click on that and see a whole range of companies where someone could use to have their credential evaluated. For a matter of fact, the University of Southern Maine only accepts an evaluation that is done by one of those agencies. So selecting one of those agencies could be a really good place to start if people don't know where to start. Also talking with the school, for example, like a USM, they may be able to recommend a credentialing agency that a lot of their students use. But it's just really, really important to make sure it's a reputable organization. If individuals need some additional help or have more questions, a good resource is the New Mainers Resource Center. They can help provide additional information when it comes to credential translations and evaluations. So as I mentioned, one of the things we're trying to do today is to share other resources beyond ours that you could turn to depending on what the criteria is or what the information is, that you're looking for. And then the last part of this page, this is actually all one long page. The 3 screens I'm showing you, it's all the content's all on one page, is about financing to help pay for a credential evaluation. So we have a new foreign credentialing grant that I'm so excited to share information about. And for a while, we have had a foreign credentialing and skills recognition revolving loan program. We actually call it ForCredLo, but it's the foreign credentialing loan. And so there is information on this webpage and you can link to these programs. What I'd like to do now is to touch on each of them in just a little bit more detail. So the foreign credentialing grant launched literally this month. So on February 1st, this program launched. So you might not have even have heard about it yet. The money is limited, funding is limited. We received a grant from the Maine Community Foundation to do this program. So we spread it among the communities that we thought would benefit the most. And we're hoping that maybe over time, there'll be additional money for this program. But what the program does is it's really straightforward and simple. It covers the cost associated with obtaining a foreign credential evaluation. That's what it does. The maximum grant is $700. and it's open to any people who live in Maine who need a foreign credential evaluated. So we use the term new Mainer a lot, but in this case, it could be, someone who's been in Maine for years and they've just never gotten to the point that they haven't maybe had the money to get their credential evaluated, but they would like to. So that it's a really, really broad, open-ended criteria. They just need to be someone who has a foreign credential that needs to be evaluated. As I mentioned, funds are limited, so it is going to be on a first come, first serve basis. So we encourage anyone who's interested in this to go to our website, to click on that link. The application is right there. It's a very simple application, and we'd like to have them get that in as soon as possible so that they don't miss out on this funding. As I mentioned, there's also the foreign credentialing loan. This program is a little bit different. This program instead is available to immigrants living in Maine who are not yet eligible to work in the US. So I think a lot of people are familiar with the fact that, when people come to the US from another country, they can't just work and start, working in any sort of types of employment. There's a period of time which many of them are not able to work or ineligible to work. So what this loan program does is help them with the costs associated with becoming work ready. And the loan can be up to $700 as well. Some of the things that might be applicable in this case is having documents translated. It might be that the individual needs to take a prep course, or they have to pay registration fees to take the TOEFL test. Maybe they need to get a driver's license so that they can drive back and forth to work once they're ready. All of those things are allowable expenses under this loan program. Now, this is a loan. So I think that, that's the hard part. It is a loan. It does have to be repaid. It's a little bit more of an extensive application to fill out. It does require, more information than the grant program does. I'm going to be honest, we have not had many takers on this, very few applications over the last couple of years that this program has been available. It was created by the Maine legislature, and like they do with many programs, they'll create a program and ask us at FAME to administer it. So we are responsible for administering it. I may be speaking out of school here, and I might get myself in trouble, but I think what we would love to see is more grant funding available in the future. And having the grant program that's available right now will help us know, how much demand potentially there is for the grant program. So keep tuning back to us, or tuning in to us, and seeing what's available as time goes on, to see if there are additional programs or additional funds available for these programs. So there are a tremendous number of organizations that are here in Maine to support new Mainers in a variety of ways. So many of these organizations are going to focus on things like helping people, learn English or improve their English or become more comfortable with their English. Some of these programs provide tutoring. Some of these programs provide after-school programming for students who are in high school or maybe even younger. So for example, there are a couple of programs I just want to highlight. So Gateway Community Services offers youth mentoring, tutoring, and workshops. Hope Acts has English classes that they offer, as well as basically just anything that's needed to help new Mainers transition to life in the Portland area. Learning Works might be a program that you're familiar with. They also offer tutoring and mentoring in an alternative ed program, but they can also help students or individuals work on their English language and their life skills. You probably are familiar with Portland Adult Ed, and I did notice in the comments that yes, our adult ed programs in Maine are phenomenal and are another great resource for students who are going through this process and would like some additional support. So I called out, MEOC and Upward Bound and some of those programs. Adult Ed is another phenomenal resource that's available. So Portland Adult Ed has a tremendous number of wide-ranging community-based programs. So we really recommend that you check in with them. Portland Public Schools have a program called Make It Happen that is through the Multilingual and Multicultural Center. Florika actually is in the schools, in the Portland area schools, Deering, Portland High, and Casco Bay, every week. She spends time 1 day a week at each one of those schools to support those students. And she works closely with the Make It Happen program, and they help her identify students that need help and need assistance with this process. And then Florica's there to help them with the whole gamut of trying to get ready to apply to college. She'll even work with them on their admissions application, and then particularly focuses on helping them get their FAFSA done, or figuring out different ways for them to, finance their education if they're not eligible for federal financial aid. So check out some of these resources. They are just really, really awesome. And on our website, we have a little bit of a summary of what they offer for services, as well as a link specifically to their websites. So you can learn a lot more about them there. And then we do have a Q&A on our website as well, in the New Mainer section. And right now that is specifically related to FAFSA questions and answers. So some of the things that we've already talked about a little bit today, what happens if a parent isn't an eligible non-citizen? How does that student navigate the FAFSA? And so we'd love to have you check those out. And we'd also love to have you tell us if there are other Q&As that you would find helpful. Are there questions that come up regularly that you would like us to either research, because we're happy to do that, or if you already have the answer, you just think it would be helpful if it was on the website. This website is evolving, like all websites, right? So we're always looking for ways to add information or update information or tweak the information that's there, because the ultimate goal is for it to be a tool for you who are working with students and for the students and families themselves. So please let us know how we can improve on anything that is on our website currently. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Flo to finish us off and to talk about how she can help.
So what like Mila mentions, I do one-on-one appointments, either one-on-one appointments available, classroom presentations, college application assistance, scholarship application assistance. And I want to say we don't have money, because a lot of people sometimes think since we help with scholarship, they'll call and say, oh, I need money for college, but we don't. Hopefully one day we'll have money for college, but right now I only assist with applications. And then as the new credential evaluation grant comes up, I'm also going to be helping students with that. Also navigating college resources and more. So the next slide, I'll talk about more of what I do and everything else. So I'm also available to come to your classroom to work with students. I also speak Arabic. So we have, if you think, working with students, think of what you need. If you want, just anything develop in that language, if it's within my capacity of work, I will definitely do it. I'm also available to work with students one-on-one, to navigate I think next slide. Yep. Available. I'm available to help students with the FAFSA one-on-one meetings, college planning, application, animated videos that are on our New Mainers website and also on YouTube. We are also partner with the Portland Public Schools. So like Mila mentions, I'm at Deering, Portland High, and Casco Bay, and I could be at locations where you want me. We also have ELL FAFSA labs in October, which is in Portland and Deering. So stay tuned for that on our website. And I also can work with students to connect them with organizations supporting New Mainers. I could do classroom presentations to support families and students who are just focused on New Mainers. So if you're thinking, I think somebody said Oxford, if you're somewhere far away and there's no way Florica will be able to come, we could do Zoom. We have acuity appointments available for students that I could, meet students via Zoom. If you also want to partner with us to be a partner within the schools in your county, we could do that. Whatever you think is necessary to help the New Mainer population, Mila and I will work to make it happen.
We sure will. And and this gets to some of the comments I've seen in the chat. I have insulted the adult ed people, I think, by virtue of not mentioning all of them across the state. And I am so sorry for that. When we've been working on this, we did mention Portland Adult Ed, I know, and we were kind of Portland based initially, because that's where, the majority of our individuals that Florica works with are in the Portland area. But I know Lewiston Adult Ed, Oxford got mentioned. We really do want to be here to support students throughout the state. And we certainly want to share resources for other parts of the state as well. So note made, and I will make sure that this section of the website gets updated to refer to all adult ed programs. And we do know that what adult ed programs offer is absolutely phenomenal, not just for new Mainers, obviously, but for all students and all the work they can do to help people get college ready and to help them through that process. So please forgive me if I by omission insulted any of you. I know the fabulous work that you do. And we did mention Portland Adult Ed. We just kind of were limiting mostly to Portland area organizations. So we will fix that, I promise. I did notice that there was a question about a student who graduated in 2017. They would not be eligible for the free college scholarship. That said, though, we would recommend that the student, if they're eligible, file for financial aid, because as mentioned, there are many, many students out there who through their Pell Grant or Maine State Grant will actually find their tuition is already going to be covered through those other sources of funding. And if they're not eligible to file a FAFSA, then that's when they can reach out to us. They can reach out to Florica directly. They can reach out to any of us at FAME, and we can help them try to piecemeal together a plan to pay for their education while they're working on becoming an eligible non-citizen. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm going to take a quick look in the chat.
And also we mentioned the college pathway. That's the worksheet that we have available. So if you're working with a student who's not eligible for the FAFSA, you could sit down. So the worksheet has 3 questions. So the goal is to come up with 3 scholarships. What's their next plan? Like figure out ways to pay as you go or employer benefits. So the worksheet has different revenues where they could, think of like, oh, do I need to pay as you go? Do I have scholarships? Or what are my parents, what can my family do right now? So there's different scenarios where students can kind of, and it's so important to have that sheet because they can refer to, at many cases too, students, scholarship takes a long time to apply for a scholarship and the timing, and sometimes they forget. So having that list there could kind of give them, that push and that prompt to continue to apply and look for resources each time that you meet with students to help.
Exactly. And I did have a question in the chat about having worked with the HOPE program or Parents as Scholars with DHHS. Actually, I have a meeting at 2 o'clock where we're working collaboratively with them. So, those are other organizations. I'm just thinking of the Salvation Army, Goodwill. There are a lot of other organizations that we also partner with and work with, but we always appreciate people mentioning organizations because maybe we aren't aware of them and how we could partner with them or refer students to them. So this is really a great opportunity to learn from you as well. So we hope we shared some information today that was beneficial to you and to your students. And I hope that you will be sure to let us know how we can help, whether it's anything that we mentioned today or if there's something that you don't think we've thought about. We are very, very open to that. So please let us know. I do want to also share that we have our Wednesday webinars every month during the academic year. So we have them September through June. And next month's topic is, so there's money left to pay. And it's going to focus on the fact that for many families, financial aid does not cover the total bill. So we're going to be talking about how do you pay that remaining balance? And, that's what we were talking about even a moment ago, with new Mainers when they're not eligible for federal aid. For a lot of families, it's piecing things together. So in this webinar, we will be talking about those various pieces to help students and parents come up with a plan. So we would love to have you join us for that presentation as well. All of our Wednesday webinars are listed on the events page, so that's where you can register. I will send the PowerPoint, so you should be able to link through that, but they are on our events page as well. Just checking the chat. Yes, we absolutely are recording this presentation, and we will be sending out the recording and the PowerPoint to everyone who is registered. So you'll get a copy, and feel free to share that widely. Everything we have is available to all of you, and please share any of our resources. We'd love to have, you don't even need to ask, just please feel free to go ahead and do that. All right, any other questions? I have 1:55, so I'll hold tight just for a second and see if there are any other questions. It's great to see all of you here. All right. Well, seeing none, I'm going to stop the recording.